Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're revisiting the 4-color Super Friends archetype, as we got a lot of new planeswalkers to play with, as well as the various Oath enchantments that synergize with planeswalkers. We don't have a ton of options when it comes to 4-color commanders, and Atraxa also happens to synergize with our planeswalkers as we get to proliferate at the beginning of our end step, so that's great to add additional loyalty counters to our planeswalkers. We also have some +1 counters throughout. And then taking a look at the rest of our deck, I've split it up into a few categories. The first one is mana acceleration, because we are trying to cast some 6 and 7 mana planeswalkers, so a bit of ramp is going to be necessary. I could have also gone in a different direction, and instead of playing a bunch of mana elves, include a bunch of board wipes instead, and then we turn it into a more controlling Super Friends deck, where we can keep the board clear and then have our planeswalkers take over. But then our deck is going to be a bit slow, and we don't necessarily synergize too much with our commander. And then of course the second category is the planeswalkers. I've tried to include a wide variety and some of the most powerful planeswalkers ever added to Arena. And then we've got the Fun with Planeswalkers category. These include some of our Oath enchantments and other cards that can maybe double our loyalty or double our planeswalker activations, so those can also be a lot of fun. And then we also have our extra turn cards, because taking extra turns with one or several planeswalkers on the battlefield is incredibly powerful and a lot of fun as well. And then the miscellaneous section has some staple cards out of the various non-green colors. So now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration, we've got the classic 1-mana creatures, Avisus Pilgrim, also a nice upside of adding white to the deck. We've got Birds of Paradise, Halfling, Elvish Mystic, Eleanor Elves, and Utopia Sprawl, since we have a lot of fetch lands to reliably get access to our forests. And then at 2 mana, there's Explorer, Into the North with some snow-covered basics, and now we also finally have a rampant growth on Arena. Lotus Cobra is excellent with all the fetch lands. Sylvan Caryatid, another recent addition to fix our colors. And then Oath of Ajani is both kind of a ramp card as well as a Fun with Planeswalkers card, so it can give our planeswalkers a 1-mana discount, and when it enters, our creatures pick up a +1/+1 counter. It's also quite synergistic with our commander, helping us proliferate those counters. Then we've got a Growth Spiral, similar to Explore, Arcane Signet, and Transformer as artifacts that can also fix our colors. Cultivate at 3. Uro can also be escaped thanks to all the fetch lands filling the graveyard, and Mirari's Wake can potentially double our mana. And then the Cornucopia is also very synergistic with Atraxa, as we can proliferate the charge counters on it, so it makes additional mana turn after turn. Then our planeswalkers include Nissa, a recent addition from Pioneer Masters. Only turns into a planeswalker once we get to 7 or more lands, but we've got a lot of ramp that puts additional lands into play, and then the Sage Animist can provide additional card advantage or make a 4/4 token. We've got Eqauire, which can also synergize with Atraxa, drawing a card when it enters, and can help ramp by untapping our lands. We've got Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, another new card, can make 2/2 tokens or turn into a 5/5 indestructible creature, so good for pressuring opposing planeswalkers. We've got the Wandering Emperor as removal. Jace the Mind Sculptor, also a relatively recent addition, so we can brainstorm with a 0 ability, maybe shuffle some unwanted cards away with our fetch lands, and then occasionally maybe Fate Seal the opponent with a +2 or bounce creatures with a -1. Then Teferi, who slows the sunset, is great if we have some mana creatures or mana artifacts we can untap alongside our lands to help us double spell. Kiora, the Crashing Wave, is kind of like an Explorer built into a Planeswalker, can also prevent damage from opposing creatures with a +1, and if we can -5, we can start making a 9/9 Kraken tokens each turn. Then we've got Tamiyo, Field Researcher, awesome to ultimates, as we basically get an Omniscience emblem to cast everything for free, but also good for drawing extra cards or tapping creatures down. Jason Raveler can draw and scry, or maybe bounce opposing creatures. Obnixilis Reignited is finally on Arena, another planeswalker that can give us card advantage with a +1 and removal with a -. We've got Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, which can basically do the same, but here the ultimate is also game-ending, giving us an emblem exiling opposing permanents whenever we draw a card. Ashiok, also very good at making Nightmare tokens and bouncing opposing permanents back. Tamiyo Completed Sage, also very fun to ultimate, giving us a Tamiyo's Notebook token, which gives our spells a 2-mana discount and can tap to draw. Can also use Tamiyo to recur planeswalkers out of our graveyard. The Eternal Wanderer is one of our few sweeper effects in this deck, since we're not playing the typical sorceries that wipe the board, so we can still use the -4 to reset the board. Then there's a Liliana, drawing extra cards when our creatures die, so that's another card that synergizes better in a deck that has a few mana elves that might draw us cards, and then can make zombies with a plus, maybe make each player sacrifice 2 creatures with a -4, and then the ultimate can also be game-winning if we can fire it off right away. You might have seen my doubling Liliana deck recently in Standard. There's a Vraska, Betrayal's Sting, which can also maybe poison the opponent to death if we can fire off an ultimate. Can also be very good alongside other planeswalkers as we get to proliferate, adding extra loyalty. Sorin, Grim Nemesis, can deal extra damage, draw extra cards, and eventually maybe make an army of Vampire Knight tokens. The -X also quite versatile if we need removal. Vraska, Relic Seeker, can deal with creatures, artifacts, enchantments while making treasures, making 2/2 menacing pirate tokens with a plus, and the -10 can also win us the game. There's Ajani, Unyielding, which can also provide a ton of card advantage in a deck that's mostly built around permanents, so another card that's better in a deck with a few creatures as opposed to a lot of board wipes. And then the -2 gives us kind of a Swords to Plowshares on a stick. Got Kaya, Intangible Slayer, which can also gain us more life while draining the opponent, or just draw a lot of cards. And then the -3 can also be great, especially when facing large creatures with powerful enter the battlefield abilities. And finally we get to Garruk, Apex Predator, which can +1 to either destroy an opposing planeswalker or make a death-touching beast, can -3 destroying creatures gaining life, and we can -8 to give our team a deadly overrun effect. And then we get to the Fun with Planeswalkers section, where we have the various Oath enchantments. Oath of Nissa, also recent on Arena, can look at the top 3 to find a creature, land, or planeswalker, and then we can also fix our colors for casting planeswalker spells. We've got Oath of Ajani, as we mentioned. Oath of Gideon will give our planeswalkers an extra loyalty when they enter, while making 2 1/1 tokens to protect them. Oath of Jace can help us draw and discard, and then when we have a bunch of planeswalkers in play, we get to scry at the beginning of our upkeep. Oath of Liliana makes the opponent sack a creature, and then we'll make 2/2 zombie tokens whenever a planeswalker enters. And then Oath of Teferi can flicker something when it enters, so can maybe re-enable some of our enchantments or creatures, and then can also let us activate our loyalty abilities twice rather than once, so it can also be a lot of fun, and also makes it easier to get to the ultimate of our various planeswalkers. Then Jada's Gift is very fun too, can turn a planeswalker into a creature, which makes it a lot harder for the opponent to remove, since they can no longer attack our planeswalkers to reduce their loyalty. And then we've got Innkeeper's Talent, Doubling Season, and Vorinclex, which are all ways for our planeswalkers to enter the battlefield with double the amount of loyalty, so they can ultimate right away and often win us the game on the spot, basically. Then we also have Broker's Ascendancy to give our creatures additional +1 counters and planeswalkers additional loyalty counters, also very good alongside all our mana elves and alongside Atraxa. And then we've got Urza Assembles the Titans, which can start from any chapter. Chapter 1 provides card advantage by digging for additional planeswalkers. Chapter 2 can cheat a planeswalker into play for free, assuming its mana value is 6 or less, so Sori, Kaya, and Garruk. And finally, we can activate loyalty abilities twice instead of once, so another effect like Oath of Teferi, which can also be very fun and makes it a lot easier to try and ultimate our planeswalkers. And then speaking of ultimating planeswalkers, taking extra turns is one way to get there as well. We've got a lot of these effects now. Time Warp, Manipulation, Temporal Sundering does require a legendary creature or planeswalker in play, but can also bounce something. Now we also have Part to Water Veil, could also play Time Stop, which you have to play in the opponent's turn to basically end it, but I decided not to include that one. And then Temporal Trespass, another recent addition here, can sometimes cast it for just triple blue if we can exile enough cards out of our graveyard. And once again, that's where all these fetch lands will come in handy. I've mentioned them a few times already, but I'm playing all 11 of them that enter untapped, so that also includes the Prismatic Vista, which can only get basics, but then all the other fetch lands, since in a 4-color deck that allows us to pretty much have perfect mana, getting either shock lands, which have 2 types, or the triomes and tri-lands, which have 3 types, even though they enter tapped. We can often get that out of the way on turn 1. And then we also have Fatal Push, which is good alongside fetch lands to enable Revolt, Brainstorm, which is also good alongside fetch lands as we can shuffle cards away, and then Swords to Plowshares, also too good not to include. And then we have 1 utility land with Interplanar Beacon, otherwise lots of dual lands to try and fix our mana. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing Mythweaver, so always going to be a tough matchup. a hand without mana acceleration is not gonna get the job done, I'm afraid. Okay, we've got the Halfling, Jace, Time Warp. Definitely missing something early to do, but I'll give it a try. And then I guess I can maybe wait on Halfling and just get a Tri-land tapped. We need black, maybe a second white, and a second green. So black, white, green. And now I can play a double 1-drop. And then next turn we're in a position where we could Time Warp, but without a planeswalker that's not too exciting. So likely going for Jace. Opponent could play Mythweaver next turn, but it's going to be without immediate value. And now Sorin's not bad either. So can play Jace and Brainstorm. Found a fetch land, plenty of other lands as well. Although there's nothing I necessarily need to get rid of. I guess Sorin may be a cleaner answer to Mythweaver than Liliana making us sack our own creatures. But I don't have to shuffle, I can just put 2 lands back and then play a tap land for now. Opponent cultivates, so next turn they can play Mythweaver and maybe a fetch land alongside it. Otherwise Jace would just -1. But yeah, now we're in a position where we could already Time Warp. I think I still prefer just getting another Planeswalker online. So let's keep brainstorming. Gideon's not bad. So yeah, this turn maybe go for Sorin. Could also go Growth Spiral and then still play Gideon, but wouldn't be able to play 6-drop, so Growth Spiral can probably go. And then fetch them away. And can go for... we already have double black, double green, double blue. Could use an extra white source perhaps. Play Sorin. Plus. And then we can use the Brainstorm from Jace to maybe set up the top of our deck to reveal something more expensive to Sorin as well. Opponent runs out Mythweaver. Gets a bunch of fetch lands. And into the north for more ramp. That's fine. And get to untap, find a Johnny, also an answer to the Mythweaver. So, what are we thinking? This turn definitely Time Warp. And then we can Brainstorm with Jace. Keep a 6-drop on top to reveal with Sorin. And then we wouldn't mind another land, so I can Uro plus Time Warp. So Liliana and a basic. A Liliana on top. Reveal to Sorin. And then I can Uro plus Time Warp. Take an extra turn. And we can do this trick once again. Now we could put a 7-drop on top. Reveal it with Sorin. Bones at 7. Now we do want to probably answer the Mythweaver if possible. Although Kaya seems like a nice solution, since we can exile it and then play a fetch land afterwards. Anyway, we can attack for lethal this turn, doesn't look like it. So yeah, Kaya. get our own Mythweaver. I still haven't crafted my own copy, so this is the only way I get to play with it. And yeah, opponent's gonna throw in the towel. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Voja, so an elf deck. Our hand is potentially decent if we can ramp out Eternal Wanderer. That can clean up nicely. So sure. Can play elves on 1, although won't be able to play turn 2 Ascendancy with that mana. Still okay fetching Forest. And then turn 2 Signet, still fine. So now we will be able to play Jace. Pelt Collector, step 1. And Fanatic of Ronas. Can also end up making a lot of mana. Alright, still liking Jace. And then, yeah, bouncing a creature is an option. Like the Fanatic. Means they won't be able to play Voja next turn. And then the elf may have to chump Pelt Collector to keep Jace alive. Provisioners next. And Fanatic. So yeah, Voja is happening next turn. I will keep my Jace for an extra activation at least. And time you with a draw. Well, I guess there's a world where we bounce Provisioner, tap down Fanatic, but yeah, 5th land will still get it done. So instead we should be setting up our Eternal Wanderer. And for now, playing Atraxa as a way to protect Jace as well. Do want to hit my land drop, so I will Brainstorm. And then Trespass is another extra turn. Can maybe ditch Growth Spiral. And at this point, Broker's Ascendancy. Chapel will be tapped, but can still play Atraxa. And proliferates. So once they play Voja, Fanatic can make 4 mana. And he joins up, ouch. Perfect answer to Atraxa, and then now they can finish off Jace, so that was bad news. I think we leave Atraxa in the graveyard to exile with Trespass, even though that's gonna take a while. So there's no saving Jace. Yeah, we went from a nice position where we can play Eternal Wanderer, clean up, and then keep our Planeswalkers alive to losing a lot at once. Can still play Eternal Wanderer, but then I'll lose my Planeswalker as well. So yeah, not an enviable position. Do we just go for Tamiyo plus on like a Provisioner? And then if they play Voja, they can still hit for 4. I'll still have a Planeswalker alive. And then we can Eternal Wanderer and keep plussing. I guess that's fine.
You cannot delay our victory.
Opponent finally runs out Voja. So I need my elves to cast the Wanderer.
Metal is stronger than flesh. I fight for the entire multiverse.
And then probably let them keep the Fanatic, since they can also eternalize it. And then lock it down anyways.
Such an imperfect form.
So now finding additional blue mana would be nice. as our opponent plays a bunch of mana elves. 3 of them, in fact. Alright, fetch land gives us a shuffle effect, as well as an extra card in graveyard. So how close are we to taking a bunch of extra turns? We should be getting there. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, we can delve Trespass, and then Manipulation. Meanwhile, Tamiyo activates a bunch. So, yeah. Let's get that going. Want an extra blue source. Could even Growth Spiral plus Manipulation. So we can maybe have a more efficient Trespass turn. Could even attack with elves here if we want to be cheeky. Alright, and then now we're looking at Broker's Ascendancy plus Trespass.
I brought that. Bow before Phyrexia.
Although I don't think I need those cards in graveyard, honestly. Make sure to exile Atraxa. I suppose Tamiyo could get back Jace with a -X. But yeah, let's just get rid of it. Back to the command zone. Trigger Ascendancy, so now we can finally ultimate Tamiyo, like we so desired. Get our notebook, and draw a card. All our cards have a 2-mana discount, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome! On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Harbin, Vanguard, Aviator. So blue-white soldiers. Our deck is not packing a lot of sweepers like you might see in other Super Friends decks, so we might struggle to deal with Harbin. That being said, our hand has potential with some nice ramp early, and I guess Gideon probably dies to the flyer. I think I still try it. Can always start with Oath of Liliana. And a Curse of Silence, naming Atraxa, that's fine. We've got other ways to spend our mana. And for now, play Caryatids, which can set up Gideon here already. Ooh, nice Banneret, giving soldiers a 1-mana discount. That's been a great addition from Foundations. So probably want to get rid of that before they just empty their hands. Although it does mean not ramping this turn. But now if we play Gideon, we'll get an extra zombie token, so that's not nothing. Opponent with Officer. Okay, so could go into the north plus Nissa. If I play Gideon, they can attack it with Officer next turn. But yeah, I can still make a token and then turn it into a creature to start applying a bit of pressure. Just means I won't be guaranteed a Jani on the following turn. I think that's still fine. And then we can fetch a tri-land. So 2 tokens for the price of 1. Enforcer's fine. Doesn't actually tap down our tokens. But if they play Harbin, they can start drawing with Officer as well. Ooh, raise the alarm instead. So yeah, next turn Harbin can already give the team flying. So our planeswalkers are just going to start dropping like flies, which is not great. Here we want to get an additional white source. This looks fine. And a fairy. So Gideon can get one last attack in. Or can make another token. I mean, we could also play Atraxa, which they can tap down with the Enforcer and still play Harbin. But then they wouldn't be attacking with 5 or more soldiers. So those are all possibilities. If I go for Teferi untapping Caryatid and a land, I could still play out Vastwood Seer, for instance, which I kind of like. So, yeah, probably better to make another token here on the way out.
Fight for justice. Just as delightful as speeding things up.
Play Nissa, so we can hit our land for turn. And we'll also get another zombie from Oath of Liliana. So we're going wide as well. But I imagine we'll lose both planeswalkers this turn. Now we can play a Jani, trying to exile Harbin, although they can still replay it for 4. So, yeah, interesting spot. Don't think Atraxa's the answer necessarily, also runs into Wash Away. If I into the north, then I do get to transform Nissa if I'd like, so that's also a possibility, but still only get to cast 1 spell. So I'll start by attacking. Opponent takes it, falls to 8. Yeah, I don't hate the Jani, just exile Harbin. Or we could go for the Sky Strike, which is the alternative. I guess Harbin's not great on defense. Sure. Otherwise our opponent keeps going wide and can maybe keep up with our zombies. But we should be able to survive another attack in the air. And our opponent needs to be careful that they don't perish on the way back. So yeah, we got to extract quite a bit of value out of Oath of Liliana, making 3 zombies, answering the Banneret early, otherwise we might have been in trouble. Alright, Flowering pumps the team, so they're getting close to a lethal attack. 13 plus 6 is 19. So yeah, it's not quite enough, so our opponent has to hang back. Takes out a Jani. Urza Assembles I could play. I could even read ahead to maybe activate Nissa twice this turn. And then into the north to transform it. Probably start by setting up an attack here, although I guess they have a Lawrune Enforcer which can block profitably. But if we can trade for most of their board, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So everyone but Nissa attacks. Opponent falls to 2. So now we just need to make sure we don't die. Into the north, which is enough to transform Nissa. And then probably start by plussing. If I reveal a Planeswalker, I can also put it in play with Urza Assembles. Ooh, Temporal Sundering, 1 mana, short of casting it here. That would have been awesome otherwise. Okay, in that case, Urza Assembles. Do we start from Chapter 3 to activate Nissa one last time? Or do we go for the Chapter 1? Yeah, I assume we're potentially dead if our opponent's got another Anthem effect next turn. But gotta try this. And then we did find more planeswalkers. Both Tamiyo and Jace are good. Now we will get a zombie end of turn from the Oath, but it's not going to be able to block in the face of Harbin. So let's see if we're dead. Icon of Ancestry, pumps a team, yeah, that should do it. Name Soldier, explains why they wanted to keep all creatures alive. But yeah, not much we could have done differently, I don't think. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Nicol, Bolas, God-Pharaoh, and Grixis Control. Nicol Bolas also pretty good at answering planeswalkers with a -4. So a tough matchup. This hand has a Brainstorm, but won't be able to cast it. No mana acceleration. So I think we can do better. And we did better. Turn 1 Mystic. Might eat removal. Otherwise can set up a turn 3 Teferi. Now Cornucopia is nice. Both great with Atraxa as well as Teferi. And a Virtue takes out our Mystic, but we can still play Atraxa or any of our Planeswalkers here. Atraxa proliferating the Cornucopia right away seems nice, so we'll have more mana for next turn. Even though curving Planeswalker into Oath of Teferi has its advantages. But now they kind of need to answer Atraxa, and they're starting to play catch-up. If they don't answer Atraxa, then we can pull further ahead. Opponent just drawing some cards here. And then Teferi untap Cornucopia lets me play Jace as well. This memory lapse is going to go to waste. Perfect. So hit you for 4. Teferi. Plus.
Complex plan. Let's improvise.
And then, what do we prefer? I guess we could assemble the Titans, start from Chapter 1 to get more value. Proliferate as well, and then, yeah, we get the second chapter right away. And we found more Planeswalkers. How about a Vraska? And then I don't mind Eqauire as a follow-up. Vraska we can still put in play for free. Could have also considered leaving Urza Assembles on Chapter 1 so we can flicker it with Oath of Teferi, so we can essentially reset it once again. But yeah, at this point we're so far ahead, and can have a quick look at the Carnage here. So put in Vraska, even though I don't activate it. Next turn we draw Eqauire. We get Chapter 3 from Urza Assembles, so we can activate our loyalty abilities twice instead of once. And we also have Oath of Teferi, saying we can activate the loyalty abilities twice rather than once. I guess they don't stack, so we can only activate them twice, sadly. But with Vraska proliferating, we do get to reach Ultimate very quickly, and then, yeah, we should be able to play both Planeswalkers out, and yeah, that's probably game over. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Radagast, a powerful mono-green creature deck, but we've got a decent hand. Turn to Caryatid, can fix our colors, and then we have options between Ascendancy, Eqauire, and even Atraxa. Opponent's got their own hexproof mana creature, Gotta hope they don't have Winter Moon, because I'm not running a lot of basics. Radagast immediately triggers. Finding Nylea. Okay, so what are we thinking? Probably want to play a 4-drop, which means Eqauire or Atraxa. Can play Eqauire, which can mine us to play an extra land, but then we will lose Eqauire next turn. So it's not ideal if we plus essentially pillowing a creature. That's also not that exciting. But maybe just ramping here is fine to get to Garruk a little sooner. Alright, and then Time Breeding Pool's fine. So they have to commit an attack on Eqauire. And Vorinclex, not a bad one here. Eqauire down. And a Swords. A clean answer to one of the opponent's creatures. So we can go Signet, Ascendancy, and Swords, which is quite efficient. Probably need some additional white mana. Can make it white-green. I guess I could even go for Atraxa alongside Signet. Although there's nothing to proliferate, so it's not all that exciting. But it does put a bigger creature on the battlefield to maybe help protect Garruk next turn. So I kind of still like this. And then I'm not in a hurry, 2 Swords to Plowshares. Can also respond to Radagast. Opponent goes for Nylea. Yeah, probably just Swords, Vorinclex still. And a Sanctum Weaver with 2 enchantments. Nylea turns into a creature, but at least Nylea wasn't a creature when they cast it, so it didn't trigger Radagast. Okay, so we can deploy Garruk. Although it's going to be under threat from Nylea. But if we take out Radagast, Nylea's no longer a creature, but they'll still have a ton of mana to enable it and cast Ghalta perhaps. So, interesting spot. Could also make a beast, of course, which will protect Garruk in a way. And then next turn we can try to Ascendancy and Manipulation in the same turn. And Garruk will go up to 7 loyalty. So we'll see what happens. And there's Ghalta for starters. Finds a Courser. Another enchantment creature. I will jump. And a Hornet Queen, making lots of flying, death-touching insects. Yeah, that's pretty good. Normally makes it very difficult to ultimate a Planeswalker that way. And they even found a Defiler to then pump up all their creatures. But yeah, we should be able to Ascendancy plus Manipulation. And Garruk keeps plussing. No great attack. Proliferate and trigger Ascendancy. So now we've got an extra turn lined up. And then now if we were to ultimate, our creatures get +5/+5, trample until end of turn if they attack our opponent. So it's not game winning in this position. So instead, we probably minus destroying Galta. And then no great attack here either. Opponent plays a Defiler. And now they can start growing all those tokens. Yeah, sadly Garrick's ultimate is not quite as game-winning as some of our other planeswalkers. Corso Crufix. And a silverback in hand as well. So our opponent can finish off Garrick. There's no way we can save him here. Nissa gets to transform right away. And maybe draw something exciting. Oath of Nissa can find another planeswalker. Just a Marsh Flats. Alright, so looks like we're pretty dead now. So we got to enact our game plan, but it just didn't do quite enough. And our opponent can pretty easily take over. Radagast is just a value machine. Titan of Industry can blow up our Ascendancy. And yeah, Hornet Queen also pretty important here to stabilize the air, otherwise Atraxa might have been able to cross the finish line in the meantime. And yeah, Crater Hoof in hand, so in case we weren't dead already, we certainly will be. Acidic Slime can blow up a land. Signet down as well. Anything else? Prowler. Trigger the Elder. Gaining 4. So Elder plus Defiler is a pretty nice engine, as they can keep casting spells, gaining a life, paying a life. With a discount from Nylea as well. And now Prowler too. Opponent's going to play it safe since they have a Crater Hoof in hand, so they don't need to take too many risks. And I'm trying to think if there's any card that can win us the game here if we top deck it. Not like I have Cyclonic Rift in the deck, so... And these are going face. So yeah, still cannot quite save Nissa unless I'm willing to throw away multiple creatures. But yeah, I guess Carotid's not doing much for me here. Can replay Atraxa. And can start with Uro. Mirari's Wake would have been kind of fun earlier, but yeah, mana hasn't really been the constraint to this game. So what's next? Can plus Nissa. Anyway, the -7 can somehow steal the game if we manage to sneak an extra point of loyalty onto Nissa. But yeah, that's not going to happen until end of turn. So may as well plus then. It's Sorin. There's no 20 mana card in my deck I can reveal. So yeah, still seem very much dead. Play Sorin. Plus. And just a Birds of Paradise for 1 damage. Alright, GG's. Opponent can cast a Crater Hoof, and that's game. Let's see how much damage they can deal. Not bad. I'll do the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Mary, red-white equipment aggro. Sadly, no green mana, otherwise this hand would have been quite exciting. This is certainly keepable. And then we'll have to fetch now to play the halfling. And then I need blue-green or green-black. Yeah, blue-green seems fine. Opponent's got the turn on Ragavan, so they're not messing around. We can play Cobra and then still Swords Ragavan. Sure. And then next turn I have the option of playing Atraxa, although it's better if we already have Cornucopia in play. If we draw Planeswalker, we could go for Urza Assembles right away, or could just blindly go for it and hope there's a Planeswalker in the top 4. Alright, never mind. Burst Lightning takes out Cobra. And shove aside my halfling. So yeah, that did not quite work out. Still have Cornucopia to set up Atraxa at least. And now Captain Lannery can immediately make a treasure. I'm sensing a theme. Not the best to bounce with Jace either, so really need to get Atraxa going. Mirari's Wake, we can maybe cast if we can successfully proliferate. If our opponent also has the swords, I give up. But that seems to work. Still not really in a position to block if we want to keep Atraxa alive. But also don't want Captain Lannery to make treasures each turn for free. So yeah, maybe it's fine to give up on Atraxa. And then Mirari's Wake can give us another mana boost. Could also block Mary, and then our opponent needs to waste a removal spell to finish off Atraxa. As opposed to just sacking some treasure. Although we've seen a lot of cheap burn spells already, so that's probably what they'll use. I think we go for Lannery. So the trade happens, but the mana goes away. And ENT to follow up. Alright, land is good, so we can play Mirari's Wake. And then next turn I'll be able to both potentially replay Atraxa and assemble the Titans. We'll see. Would need to draw another land for that to work. Inti puts counter on itself. Finds Portable Hole, ouch, that can deal with the Cornucopia, sadly, since it's technically a 0-drop. Although we'll still have 8 mana from Mirari's Wake at least. And now an Ajani Planeswalker, if they lose a cat.
We have peace.
So we've got our work cut out for us. Opponent's not done yet. Alright, let's fetch. Want a white source. And then maybe second black and green. Alright, so we can both assemble the Titans and play Jace. So I guess this should work. Find Tamiyo. And then do we want Uro? I guess it's not a bad follow-up. Play Jace. Now Jace will die.
We can figure a way out of this.
Probably fine to draw a card on the way out as opposed to bouncing a creature here.
I think I know what to do.
Authority makes our creatures enter tapped. So blocking is out of the question. We fall to 5, and they can still deploy Kythian. And they left Jace in play, interestingly enough. So put in Tamiyo. And then, yeah, we can tap 2 creatures down, which is probably Inti and Kythian. Or we could tap down Mary, but Kythian transforming could be a problem. So maybe start with Uro and take it from there. Although won't be able to keep Uro as a blocker here. Ooh, Eternal Wanderer, that was a good top deck. Put in Marsh Flats. And then what I can do is play Eternal Wanderer and then bounce the leftover creature with Jace. Although, let's see, don't want a Ajani to necessarily transform. So we'll leave the cat token, which we can then bounce.
I allow it.
Or we can keep plussing Jace and then just -2, although they can replay a hasty Mary regardless. So, alright, never mind. Opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Slimefoot and Squee, a pseudo reanimator deck. Our hand's promising. We've got Cultivate to set up turn 4 doubling season. And both Teferi and Tamiyo are awesome to ultimate. So hopefully that works out. So we don't really need Atraxa as part of this plan. Opponent's got a turn 1 play. Stomping ground for birds. And a Lotus Cobra is nice too. If it survives, if not, we can still cultivate. So if we top deck a fetch land with a Cobra, I could already play Doubling Season. Opponent plays their commander. And no fetch land, so it's just going to be cultivate here. Can play this tap to save ourselves a bit of damage. And get blue and whites. Okay, pass a turn. And then hope there's no enchantment removal. Looting is fine, can maybe enable Slimefoot. But yeah, the Slimefoot deck needs to set up before they can reanimate cards like Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. Alright, never mind. Reanimates for 1 mana, brings it back. I guess that's the backup plan. So now casting Doubling Season means I wouldn't be able to necessarily play a planeswalker on the following turn, although Lotus Cobra does help. And a Temporal Sundering cannot cast that one yet. So if I play a land, enable landfall, play Doubling Season, I'll have 1 land untapped. And then I guess I would need a fetch land to be able to play a Tamiyo on the following turn. Yeah, don't love my spot anymore, as you can imagine. But what's the alternative? Play Teferi minus on Vorinclex, lose it to an attack, and then before you know it, we're in the same spot. So I think Doubling Season is still worth a shot. Sadly couldn't find a fetch land in the meantime. Small chance we can take another turn afterwards, but don't have my hopes up. Since our opponent can also double their mana. But if we can play Tamiyo with a Doubling Season, we essentially get an Omniscience emblem, and then between Teferi and Temporal Sundering we can probably figure it out. Disciple can draw. And now they have Slimefoot and Squee in the graveyard ready to reanimate more stuff, like a Primeval Titan. And it looks like they can remove the Cobra here. So now even a fetch land doesn't save us, and we just die to Vorinclex. That's sad. Well, they needed the one-off reanimate here. And we even drew the fetch land, so that would have done it. Oh man. Extra sad now. What could have been? Oh well, GG's. Opponent Cruise Copter. And we die. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Sorin, mono-black vampires. Our hand seems fine. Got some early ramp, a planeswalker. Gideon good at pressuring Sorin. And then hopefully find more planeswalkers along the way. So we need green mana. Can make it green-white. Dusk Legion Zealots next. Ooh, nice. Innkeeper's Talent can maybe help us ultimate our planeswalkers. For now, play Gideon, make a token. And now we've got a way to maybe pressure Sorin. Alright, opponent passes, and the doubling season. Wow, we drew both of our doubling effects. So, doubling season does not affect adding loyalty to a planeswalker, but still happy to turn Gideon into a creature. Could also go Innkeeper's Talent after playing Uro, so we can add a counter to the ally, so it can also attack Sorin. So we certainly have options. Yeah, let's maybe start with Uro. If I already had a planeswalker in hand to ultimate with doubling season, it would be a different story. Well, say hello to Teferi. And then we want to keep fetching blue and green to help escape Uro. Yeah, should have most colors covered. Play the talents. Animate Gideon. And both at Sorin. So if they let Sorin take 3, they wouldn't be able to cheat a vampire into play, which is the scariest mode. Opponent lets Sorin go. Now they can potentially finish off Gideon on the way back, if they activate the knights. But that's fine. And grasp our token. And attack for 3. So we still have a Gideon. And yeah, I'm not gonna mess around, just doubling season. And make a token, which now is 2 tokens. And then next turn we can immediately ultimate Teferi. Right, they do have a Heartless Act. Gotta make sure to use it before our creature has a counter. So Gideon might fall, and then Teferi shall rise. Bloodlord pumps other vampires. Can't keep Gideon alive, so we'll take the trade. And could even take an extra turn here, but Teferi -8. And now whenever we draw, we get to exile an opposing permanent. Bloodlord, alright, that's kind of scary. So we're at 10. But now we draw. Exile probably the Bloodlord. And then Cornucopia is also synergistic with doubling season. Would like to get additional lands on the battlefield. Can use Nissa, play Halfling, and then maybe wait a turn on Manipulation. Although we could play the extra save, just take our extra turn, exile either Knights or maybe even a land, and take it from there. But with this many blockers, we should be alright. So sure, play Nissa, get a Forest, play it, play Halfling. Or we could play a Cornucopia, X = 1, so it enters with 2 counters, and then I can still play Halfling. And then level up the talent. Counter on, let's say, the Halfling. And I'm gonna play it safe and block. Nissa's pretty close to turning into another planeswalker. Kalitas, that's a good one. Found a land, and sure, Kalitas can go. And yeah, opponent has seen enough, can't blame them. But this turn we could have taken an extra turn. I guess that's most of my turn gone. Although, never mind, with Cornucopia, we could still escape Uro as well. So then we're very likely to also find land 7 to turn Nissa into a planeswalker. And then we haven't even touched Atraxa yet, so it's not like we really needed it here. But yeah, doubling season plus the fairy was basically game over. So we get to see our 4-color Super Friends in action, and as you can tell from the games today, we don't face any easy matchups when we pick Atraxa as our commander and fill our deck full of mythic rare planeswalkers. So again, the matchmaking also plays an important role in your Brawl experience, and this one in particular, even if we're not facing the top tier of commanders out there, still feels like we're in kind of the pseudo hell queue, so the matchmaking is doing its best, and even though our deck can be a little bit janky, we're still getting matched against some very fine-tuned commanders out there. So therefore, I wouldn't really recommend this as a strategy in Brawl, just because we're going to face some very streamlined decks, and the plan of casting 5 and 6 mana planeswalkers is not always going to work out, but when it does, it's of course going to be a lot of fun. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.